This is a Testimonies with Terry follow-up.
All right, guys. Well, I am here with season 3 guest, Maggie English. Maggie, thanks for coming on the show.
Hi, thank you for having me back.
Yeah, it is so good to catch up with you. You have gone through a lot over the last year. There's a lot to talk about here, and you've had a couple name changes since then. So Magdalene Rose is your solo name that you're going by, and recently you added a new name, Master Scream.
Yeah, it's been a wild year.
Yeah, congratulations on graduating with your master's degree. That's I mean, I know what it's like to go through that, having one myself, and it's not easy. It's a lot of work on top of you being on tour, putting out new music. I honestly don't know how you did it all. So, congratulations. How does it feel to finally be done?
I honestly feel like a burden has been lifted off of my shoulder. I feel like a
Right?
normal person again. I can go and like hang out or like we literally like got home yesterday from the tour that we were on and everyone was just like either sleeping all day or like ordering food because we don't have anything at the house. We've been gone for months. And so for the first time I was like, I can take a nap if I'm tired. Like I don't have to stay up and work on school and this is nice.
Yeah, no more 14-page papers to write and citing all your
Yeah.
sources, and no more
Hmm.
writing a discussion post and making sure you responded to others. That's all done. You are forever free from that.
Yes. Thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah.
Any interest, and I'm guessing probably not right now because you got so much going on, but any interest in the future of going from Master Scream to Doctor Scream?
I when I originally started my master's program, I did have the intention of going all the way to my doctorate. But I never really took that break that most people take between high school and college and then college and masters. And so I'm definitely taking a little bit of a break from school because I definitely am past that stage of burnout and I just kind of pushed through it and I was like, you know what? It's not worth my mental health right now. Like I'm allowed to take a break. There's nothing in my life that requires me to do all this school and I have my whole entire life ahead of me. I can go back whenever I want. And so right now I'm just taking a break and focusing on releasing music and being present with people. And and then maybe once things slow down a little bit, I'll reconsider what I want to do for the rest of my schooling if I want to go back for my doctorate or not. But right now, I'm definitely taking a break from school and just chilling for a little bit.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you for just having that self-awareness of knowing, hey, like you said, I'm past beyond burnt out here and I need to just take a break and enjoy time with your family, with your loved ones, and to celebrate all the successes that you've had too, which we'll definitely talk about throughout this time here. Remind people again, Maggie, what degree did you graduate with, as far as like what did you major in?
Yeah, it was psychology with a specialist or a specialist. It was crisis counseling, but like the overall broad term, it was a psychology degree, but it was specifically with crisis counseling.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I mean, yeah, just getting to chat with you over the last year. I mean, you definitely got the right heart to get into that field. If the Lord, brings you that way in the future to get into using that degree, you definitely got the heart for that. So big things in store, but big things going on for you now. So let's get into it here, Maggie. When we last talked, it was about a year ago now. I think it was October of last year that your episode came out as part of season 3, and at the time still in GFM, and you guys were gearing up to go on tour with Fozzy and really kind of just go from there. And a lot of changes happened. Chris Jericho, actually, he got that throat injury from a
Yeah.
wrestling match, and I think that kind of delayed the tour. And during that time too, GFM decided to go their separate ways. And so, Maggie, for you, what was that like? Just coming to the realization that, okay, GFM, it's done for now, and me and my sisters were kind of going to go branch off and do our own thing. What was that like for you to just realize that, okay, this is all on me now?
Yeah, it was definitely one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make. Because, when they brought that up, I didn't want to force them to do something that, they didn't really want to do anymore. And it got to the point where they really wanted to kind of explore other options. And we had done GFM since we were children, like literally children. And, we didn't really have an identity outside of that. And, I think that was something that was really concerning for all of us. And, both of my sisters definitely just went their separate ways to try and figure out where God was calling them to next, in order to kind of have a fuller sense of themselves. And, so I was left with the decision, like, oh, do I keep doing GFM just as me and I hire more people, or like, what do I do? And I wrestled with God a lot with that. And there was a lot of just internal fighting because, like, I wasn't physically yelling at God, but like mentally I was yelling at him. And my prayers were very angry. And, that was all I knew. And so I didn't know how to do anything else. Like, I was in the middle of school and I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to handle transitioning from this. I'm still trying to finish school. Like, I don't want to stop doing that because I'm almost done with it, but I don't even know what to do anymore. And so that was something that, like, it took a lot out of me, especially, spiritually. And I was angry with God because I felt like he was taking away something that he had called me to do. And, I felt like, God, like, I've listened to you, I've followed all the rules, like, why are you punishing me for doing nothing wrong? And that was really difficult for me, to kind of learn how to trust God again. And, uh, thankfully, I'm out with Seventh Day Slumber right now, and they were some of the first people to kind of help me wrap my head around that and realize, God can use you in multiple different ways, and some things are just here for a season, and then God decides to change that, and you have to you have to learn how to be content with where God has you. And, your plans aren't always the best, and, God has something way better planned for you. And you might have felt like this was the best thing ever, but God could be sitting right on the edge of the next decision saying, like, come on, like, you're basically playing with mud pies right now. I have this giant castle for you. And so that was when we decided to go forward with the Magdalene Rose name, because I felt like I was still being called to do music. And I felt like God had given me a talent vocally, and I didn't want to just kind of throw that away. And so we just decided to use my name, because Magdalene Rose is my full name. And so we're like, why don't we just put out a song under your name? And, if it sticks, it sticks. And if not, then there's your answer from God, whether or not you're supposed to do this or not still. And, I think doing that, and especially going on the first tour we did in January, I opened for Seventh Day. And that was really difficult for me because I was all alone compared to what I had been used to. I was used to being on tour with my sisters, and my parents were always on tour with us. And, it was a blood family thing. And, that wasn't there on the Seventh Day Slumber bus. But thankfully, I had grown up with them, so I knew them and I trusted them. But sometimes it's hard, even with people that you trust, to be emotionally available. And, you feel like you're burdening them, and, they're already sticking their necks out for you, so you don't want to make them feel any worse. And so that was hard for me to kind of understand a new normal. And I think that pushed me to rely on God even more, because it felt like he was the only one I had left, even though, I was surrounded by people that loved me. But sometimes, even with all those people around you who are rooting for you, you can still feel super alone. And, I was thankfully able to kind of just lean on God in that moment. And I had gotten the closest to him that I had been in a while. And, it pushed me back into reading my Bible and, just having honest conversations with him, and not trying to have the, like, religious prayer. And it's just like, no, I'm just having a conversation with God. And if that conversation just kind of, like, drifts off, like, that's how normal conversations happen. It doesn't have to be this strict structure. Like, I can just be telling God, like, hey, like, I'm really upset right now and I need you. And, like, that's good enough. Like, you don't have to go through this 12-step thing and spin around 12 times and sit down, and if you don't do it right, then God doesn't hear you. Like, and I think that's something that, this transition process definitely helped me learn, because I kind of had that religious view of God, and I realized more of his human aspects to him, because Jesus was both human and God at the same time, and so he's able to understand our feelings, he's able to understand our hurt and the trials that we go through, because he went through them too. And so why would I hold that from him, from the one person that knows me completely but still wants me completely to open up to him and to let him know, and he knows everything we're struggling, but by wanting us to kind of admit it to him, it helps us be able to figure out where we're at too. And I think that was something that I really had to relearn, because I was very emotionally shut off, because I was used to being strong for people, and I was the one who was there for people, and then now here I am, like, I'm a mess, I don't know how to be there for myself, I don't know how to let other people be there for me, like, I don't know how to do that. And so I think that whole process kind of helped me unlearn some bad behaviors that I had kind of learned. And I relearned how to be vulnerable with people. Sometimes, unfortunately, that's even with your own family, you just learn to be strong for people, and you don't ever let them see that vulnerable side of you. And so I think that helped a lot with that process, but wasn't the easiest process to learn either.
Right. I mean, so much that you went through, and as you're talking, like it to me, it almost kind of sounds like at what, 22, 23 years old, it's almost like you went through a midlife crisis at that
Right.
stage. Because I mean, like you said, like all you knew pretty much your whole life up to that point was GFM, and it was a family, business, and now that's done, and it's like, okay, well, you're kind of, not that they threw you out into the world, but like you're kind of like, okay, now you got to figure this out, Maggie. Without that band behind you, without the family doing this together, like what's left? Who is Magdalene Rose English, right? And
Yeah.
just the difficulties, and I think about the spiritual battles that could bring about too. Like, can you maybe talk to that a little bit, Maggie? As far as, I mean, you talked about just kind of that anger that you had, kind of with God, which I love you being real with that, because God's okay with us being angry with him, right? Like he can handle that.
Yeah.
He's not like, oh my gosh, what, my feelings are hurt. Like he can handle that, right? But like,
Yeah.
talk about maybe some of the spiritual battles, the spiritual warfare that you kind of went through during that season of just really trying to figure out, okay, what's my next step here?
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of just confusion, and in that anger, being kind of conflicted, because like you're saying, it's like, oh, this is God that I'm angry at. Like, is he gonna kill me because I'm telling him I'm angry at him, and like worrying what my next step would be. And um, you know, I started reading a lot in the Psalms, and I found passages where David was just pouring his heart out to God, and he told him, he's like, I wish I was dead, and like, how dare you keep me alive? Like, and I
Yeah,
was like,
it's
oh,
in
okay, if
there.
he could
Yep.
be that truthful with God, like, why can't I? He was a man after God's own heart, and he told him that, so like, I should be able to just be that honest with God. And I think learning to let go of that, I don't know, like, it's not like a fear of God, but it's like being scared of God. And it's like, you shouldn't be scared of God. Like, have a righteous fear and a respect for him, but don't be scared of him. And I think once I learned how to let go of that, of being scared of what he would think, and realizing he already knows what's going on in my head, and so who am I to keep that from him? And if I'm claiming that he's one of my closest friends, he's my mentor, he's supposed to be my spiritual father, but I'm not being honest with him, I'm not talking to him at all about any of what's going on, like, how can our relationship be close then? And so that's when I started, just really honestly communicating with him, and letting myself be angry, and letting myself kind of like accuse him of stealing things from me. And um, then learning that, I think, by admitting that I felt that way to him, it helped me learn, like, okay, he didn't steal anything from me, and his timing is a lot better than my timing. And maybe I was making myself my own god, and maybe I was making this identity as a member of GFM my own god, instead of relying on, Jesus Christ to be my savior. I was relying on a status in a band to be the thing that filled that void in me, and that could never fill that void that you have. And once I realized that switched things a lot. And it didn't mean that it was any easier. There were still plenty of nights that I cried myself to sleep, and plenty of nights that I didn't want to go out on stage because I was having a bad day mentally, or the performance I felt was super sloppy because I just was not there mentally. But I was able to heal, and I was able to come to terms with God and kind of apologize for the anger that I had towards him, and letting him know that I trust him and what he's doing and working behind the scenes, but I don't know, like, I don't understand. And while it's easier now, kind of just looking back, because it's been several months. It's been almost a year since everything has kind of changed. So it's hindsight's always 2020, but there's still obviously days where I don't know where God's gonna take me, and I don't know what his plans are, and it could be that after this month, music is no longer in my career path that he wants me to do, and I'm at the place now where I can be content with that, and I'm just okay doing whatever he calls me to do. And I'm not making that my identity. My identity is that I am a child of God, and I am here to do what he's called me to do in whatever capacity that might be. And that wasn't an easy mindset to fall into. And the new song that we just put out, I made a video on my social media talking about how I was like playing with night terrors for like 6 months, just battling with that, and just kind of the whole everything that was going on, the mental trauma that came with that, learning how to identify as something completely different, and having what you thought was your entire identity seemingly ripped away from you, having to learn how to deal with that. And I spoke with somebody who was from the GFM fan base, who is now thankfully following along the Magdalene Rose journey, and I spoke with her about everything that had been going on, and she brought up that it may have been spiritual warfare, and trying just Satan trying to fight over that and trying to kick me when I'm down, and seeing if he can just make me completely useless because he knew how weak I was. And I told her, I was like, sometimes it feels like there's literally a weight on my chest when I wake up, and the night terrors that I was having were so graphic. I was like, I've never experienced anything like this, and the only thing that would keep me from having those is some nights I would fall asleep to a sermon, and I literally didn't have any dreams at all. Like, it was just complete black. And then my phone would die, and the second my phone died, like, I would wake up because I wouldn't hear the sound anymore, and I'd be like, oh well, I'm about to wake up in a few hours, so it'll be fine. And then the second I fell asleep, I would have another night terror. And so she prayed over me, and prayed that any spirit of fear and any spirit of oppression would be just eradicated from my life. And the night that she prayed over me was the first night that I didn't have any type of dream like that. And
hallelujah.
It's been, I think, since June or July, or maybe even May when that happened. It was early summer when that happened, and there might have been like a total of 3 since then that I've had. And I'm sleeping now. I'm not sleep deprived, and I'm able to communicate with people, and be present in conversations, and minister to people from like on tour and stuff. And before that, it was so hard to keep a conversation because there was just so much brain fog, and I felt so exhausted all the time. And I didn't have any energy in me, and you could see it in my face whenever I didn't have makeup on. And so I would have to make sure that I was always having makeup on so you could make sure that I didn't have like, you couldn't see the dark circles under my eyes, and I didn't feel comfortable going out because I didn't want people to think that I looked like a zombie, because I felt like I looked like a zombie. And you know, just from that process, it's not only spiritual healing but physical healing has occurred. And it just goes to show the power of prayer, because I I would be praying every night, and I was like, God, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm terrified to even go back to my bunk and go to sleep because I don't want to see that again. And the lady who prayed over me, had been told recently that she was supposed to be a healer from God. And she was terrified, and she didn't know what that meant, because she's like, I don't want to look like I'm crazy. And like, I never want to do that ever before. Like, I just want to like help do sermons and lead my youth group. Like, I don't want to do that. And so I was the first person that she laid hands on and prayed for. And I didn't tell her that for a few days because I just forgot. I am bad at texting people sometimes. So then I texted her, she was like, there's no way that actually happened. And I was like, yeah, it happened.
Wow.
So it's just crazy.
Yeah, what an amazing testimony. My goodness, like how faith building for her, to kind of get that basically confirmation of the word that was spoken over her, that hey, you're going to be kind of used in the healing ministry. And then she prays for you, and bam, like, God works through her to bring healing to you. I mean, that's got to be faith building for her, for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy. And she's been to several shows since that. And I've been able to keep up with her through social media and through like texting and stuff. And it's been crazy to see how God is using her. And she's doing a lot of schooling with a theological school, I think in like Africa somewhere. And so a lot of her schooling is dealing with the spiritual side of things that us in the Western world don't really like focus on a lot. It's a lot of like, oh, we'll just pray and blah blah blah. Like, a lot of times, there isn't that kind of priority in realizing this spiritual stuff is real. Like, there are demons that are going to attack you, and you have to be prepared. And that is why prayer is so important. That's why being in the Word is so important. And you have to have that spiritual armor every day. And even when you have that armor on, you can still be attacked. And so I think it was just God's timing for her to be there and be learning about that stuff specifically, and to have been told that she was supposed to be a healer. And I didn't meet her until the first Magdalene Rose tour, and she never got to come to a GFM tour. And so she just came because she wanted to hear GFM songs, and that was how we met. And then I think 2 shows after that was when she prayed over me. So wow. Definitely just God's timing.
For sure, man. How amazing. I've personally never had night terrors, but just dealing with clients that have had them and just hearing testimonies from other people. It's just demonic in nature, right? And I think night terrors is like what us in the psychology field call them, but I think at the root of it, it's really just a demonic attack. And so what advice would you have, Maggie, for anyone out there listening who is maybe struggling with night terrors? What advice do you want to give them?
Definitely just, it can seem very hopeless at times, but it's so important to keep fighting, and finding people in your life to continue to pray for you and support you. And that's something I didn't tell anybody that I was experiencing that until like 3 months in, because I didn't want them to think that I was just like, I don't like a sissy because I couldn't go to sleep and I was having bad dreams. And it's like, no, this is way worse than bad dreams. And I started talking about it with at least the people in the bus, and letting them know what was going on, and so they could be there for me. And they would let me sleep up front when everybody was up there, so I would feel less alone. And if I needed to go back and sleep in the back, somebody would stand there with me until I fell asleep. Or they were all giving me suggestions. Like, they were the ones who suggested to listen to the sermon or to listen to worship music when I fell asleep. And the more people who you trust that know about it, the more helpful options that they can come up with, and the more community and strength you have. There's strength in numbers, and there's strength in prayer. And even if you don't believe in that healing sort of thing, let people pray over you, and God will work in ways that even if you're like, I don't believe in that, he can still heal you. And sometimes that will change your mindset on some things. And definitely don't turn down prayer, don't turn down people, let them into your lives. And it's scary sometimes being vulnerable with people because you don't know what they're going to do with that information. So definitely share it with people you trust and people that have your best interest in mind. But don't give up fighting, because it is so much worth in living. And there's so much beauty in life that you'll miss out on if you don't keep fighting. And sometimes that's literally just surviving for a minute at a time, and focusing on something good that happened, even if it's just one good thing that happened and the rest of your day was just garbage. You focus on the one good thing. And that's super hard to do sometimes. So when you're able to grab onto that and hold on to it, it can give you a little sliver of hope to keep you going to the next day. And those little slivers were what kept me going until I was able to be healed. And so it's definitely worth continuing to fight.
For sure, for sure. And yeah, I mean, it sounds like the key to your breakthrough obviously was first and foremost Jesus Christ, but like you said, just the power in numbers, the power of community. We don't really get anywhere by battling things on our own. We need to let people
Yeah.
in and fight for us. And you talked earlier about how it's always kind of been a little bit of a struggle for you to be vulnerable with people. And it sounds like God's been working on you, and that's becoming an easier thing for you to do. What has that done for your mental health, Maggie, for you to kind of be at this place where, hey, like, I feel a little bit better about trusting some people, about letting some people in? Like, how has that kind of affected your mental health to know that I can be vulnerable and it's okay and it's safe for me to be vulnerable?
It definitely is helping me just become stronger mentally. And sometimes I feel that it's made me weaker because I'm crying for no reason, or I start talking about something and I start crying, and I'm like, get it together. Like, what are you doing? It's not that big of a deal. It's like, oh, they got my sandwich order wrong. And it's like, why are you crying? But it's just an accumulation of things then. And it's just the one tiny thing that broke the camel's back. And so sometimes I feel like I'm being a little bit of a drama queen, but I'm learning that it's okay to have emotions, and it's okay to cry, and it's okay to feel emotions to 110%. And I'm learning how to kind of push into that, and instead of pulling back from what I'm feeling. And it's definitely helped me just become a happier person. And the last episode we talked about how I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder. And I don't want to have that define who I am. I'm just a person living with depression. I'm not a depressed person. And
Amen.
um I definitely feel like learning how to be open with people has helped that a ton. And I've have a group of people I can trust now, instead of like, this is my family and that's the only people I trust. And it's like, no, well, now I have my family. I have the Seventh Day Slumber family. I have extensions of their family, and it's super cool to have a community now. And some of them I trust and I know more than others, but even the people that I don't know as well, like, I can reach out to them for certain things. And that's something that I never did growing up or when I was younger, just because I had closed myself off from that. And so now, kind of forcing myself to be uncomfortable, it's changed so much of my life. And there were times when bad things would happen and I would get so torn up about them, and it would just affect my entire month. And now it's like, okay, you can take a step back, realize there is a whole support group here for you, and they're going to help you figure it out. And there's no reason to freak out. There's no reason to have a panic attack. There's no reason to let this affect your entire life. Like, this is just a small portion of your life. And, there are so many more better things that are happening. And you can just let that roll off your shoulders. Like, it's not a big deal. And, of course, there are times where I still things get to me. And, I've learned that that's okay too. And it's okay to let yourself heal. And, if you're not letting yourself take those two steps back, that's stunting your growth too, because you have to let yourself fall down in order to get back up again. And if you never fall down and get scabs and bruises, your body's never going to get strong. And, I've learned to be okay with mistakes that I'm making. And, it teaches me how to make things right. And it teaches me how to have proper relationships. And, I feel so much growth has happened in this season. And obviously not all of it has been easy, but I feel like I am becoming, a more beautiful person. And a lot of it I feel has been internally. And every night I feel like I'm getting compliments, not because of the way I look, but because they feel so welcomed. And that was always a goal of us with GFM. We wanted to be that safe space for people. But now, I don't even have to talk to people, and they just come up and they're like, I don't know why, but I feel so safe around you. And I think that that healing and that unconditional love that Jesus Christ has for us is starting to shine through me, which is super cool. Because I felt like inside for a while I had become very cold, and I didn't know how to fix that, and I didn't want to be that. But with grief and with transition, it's a very real part, and I wanted to kind of fast forward through that. But in order to heal through things and to overcome stress in your life, you can't really fast forward through the hard times. You have to experience it, and that's where growth occurs. And I definitely feel like that is the main thing that's been happening, is growth, and not just spiritual growth, but emotional growth. And growth in the ways that I can show love to people. And sometimes there's been confusing things, and I have to ask, like, wait, what does that person mean? Like, I don't know what they're saying there. Or like, why do I feel this way? And like, somebody has to explain it. And I feel like a toddler asking like why this happens. But nobody is ever like condescending. They're just like, oh, that's because this. And I'm learning that not everybody learns on the same scale either. And I think that has helped a lot, because I feel like in some areas I excel, but in other areas I'm very stunted in my knowledge. And learning that it's okay to be a little bit behind in some of your learning has helped me learn to be okay with myself. And that's the main thing that I've been working on recently, is just being okay with myself and being okay with my faults and the areas that I excel in. And that's what makes you human.
Yeah, I love it, Maggie. I love it. I think it was a couple months back, maybe longer than that, but I think I'd sent you a message where I just kind of had this image of like, you're just kind of like being in a cocoon and emerging as like a butterfly, right? And I just, like you said, growth, like, and I just see that so much in you. And one thing that, as we're talking, that I'm really sensing is that it sounds like over this last year, this last 6 months, maybe especially, that God is really showing you how loved you really are, by
Mhm.
him first and foremost, but then, yeah, everyone around you. And it sounds like you're at a point now where you're allowing people to fully love you, that you're letting your guard down and allowing yourself to be vulnerable to feel that love.
Yeah. And it's one of those like I had a teacher one time, and she was like, I was asking God to show me that he loved me, and I was struggling with that a lot. And then the next day a filing cabinet fell over and it scratched my hand, and I looked down and it was in the shape of a heart, and I was like, no, it wasn't. There's no way that actually happened. And it's stupid and it's silly. But then I was thinking about that the other day, and I went to brush my teeth in the bus, and there was a spit mark in the shape of a heart in the sink. And I was like, there is no way that this is
I
actually
love it.
happening right now. That was the very first thing that I thought of. I was like, "Ah, she was right. That did happen."
Man, the lengths God will go to show his love for us, right? Sometimes
Yeah, it's like,
it's in
oh,
the,
it's a
yeah,
spit
sometimes it's
mark.
in, exactly, yeah, sometimes it's just in the shape of a spit mark. I mean, he literally truly uses everything. So it's so cool to see where you're at now, Maggie, compared to where you were, almost a year ago, just kind of worried, anxiety, stricken with night terrors, figuring out what to do. And so, like you said, Magdalene Rose is the name. You link up with Seventh Day Slumber, you head out on tour with them, and have pretty much been, on tour with them since then. Do you remember the very first show that you performed solo as Magdalene Rose, Maggie?
Yeah.
What was that like? I can only imagine like how weird that must have been, like to look around and be like, oh, well, CJ, Lou, they're not here. Like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, I literally like it was in Chattanooga, and so it wasn't a super far drive. So I think we just left the day of, and we got there, and I was setting up the merch table, and I had done my makeup, and I was in the outfit that I was trying out, and I literally just remember Blaze coming up, and I just told him I was like, I feel so weird, and he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, I don't know, I just feel weird. And he's like, are you okay? I was like, yeah, but I feel weird. And then we went on stage, and I never get nervous to perform. And I just felt like the biggest sense of dread come over me. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I never get nervous. I never get scared. Like, this is just something that I know I'm able to do. And I did not want to go on that stage. But I was like, our intro's already starting. Like, I know I have to go on. I can't just walk away. And I got on stage and I felt so awkward. I didn't know what to do with my hands. Like, I'm used to having a bass for part of it, and I didn't have that, and I didn't know what to say in between, songs, and I felt super uncomfortable. And but, after the show I went to the table and I spoke with a lot of people. I got to pray with people, and you know, it was cool to see God still using me even in my discomfort. Um, but then after the show, I went back and cried in my bunk. But it was weird for a while. But after about the first week of tours, I started to understand a new normal. And I grew up with everybody that was playing with me except for Eli, who is our bass player. And I only knew Eli from a band called As We Are, and I had met him a year or two before. And the only conversation I ever had with him, he was making jokes the whole time. And I was like, this guy's annoying. Like, he won't have a conversation. Like, nothing that comes out of his mouth is serious. Like, I don't want to ever talk to this guy again. And then he's filling in for bass with me, and I felt so bad. And I was like, this guy is literally like just taking a chance on me. And I thought he was annoying, and I was like, I was torn because I was like, oh my word, this is going to be the most annoying trip and tour that I've ever been on. But then I felt bad because I knew he was taking a chance on me. And then after about a week, we started getting to know Eli more because they had been on tour with him when he was playing for Amongst the Giants. And they had been on like several months tours with them. And so they knew Eli way more than I did, but we were all still getting to know him. And I started to learn a lot of that was just kind of a shield that he put up, and we got to know like the real Eli. And he's been there for me in several different areas, and he's quickly become part of our family too, which is it's cool to see that. And it took a little bit of time, but he's another person I'm learning to trust with some things. And he was on that first tour, so he obviously saw just everything, the mess of emotions I was. And he wasn't the type of person to use that against me. He was there in any way that he could be. And I think he felt a little awkward sometimes because he's like, oh my word, this girl is freaking out and I don't know how to help her because I don't know her. But he definitely always tried to be there, and he's been there for us, still since then. So we obviously must not have scared him too much with that.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been watching your vlogs, and just, I mean, him and Blaze, it seems like when they get together, it's just like, okay, what prank and shenanigan are they going to pull next? Like, it's so fun to watch.
Yeah.
And I mean, just, I mean, the little concert clips that I've seen, he just kills it on stage with you guys. And what helped you, Maggie, kind of find your identity as Magdalene Rose, as being a solo act? I mean, other than just repetition, right? I mean, you've been on tour now for close to 9 months now. Other than that,
Yeah.
like, was there any other like keys or maybe like aha moments you had that were just like, okay, like I'm finally starting to figure out who I am now as a solo act, especially on stage.
I think definitely just being able to write new music and claim something as my own, and you know it's a physical difference that I can see. And so I think that helped me latch onto like, okay, this is Magdalene Rose and that was GFM. And so especially the more new music that we add, it starts to feel a lot more different. And at first I just felt like we were a cover band and we were just playing GFM songs and
Playing the
um
hits.
yeah, we were a tribute band. And but now it's like, okay, well, we're playing Shark Spray, and then we added Guerrilla Warfare, which isn't released yet, but that was, written just from a lot of emotions that I was going through at the time, and it's super heavy. And so being able to play that every night was very cathartic for me, and it was I was able to get those screams out, and through that, it's just an expression of emotion the whole night. And we started playing a Bad Residential live, and so I can definitely tell just every time we add a new song that helps. And but I'm starting to see people come to shows or join lives on social media because they want to hear about Magdalene Rose. And at first it was very much like, oh, well, what happened to GFM? Oh, like, what are your sisters doing? And it felt like nobody cares about anything that I'm doing. They just want to know about the past, or they want to rehash the past, or they want to know about the situation. And I was like, I want to do what God is calling me to do, and I feel like He's calling me to do music. And now that people are starting to realize, okay, like Magdalene Rose wasn't just like a one song thing, like this is what we're doing now, and people are starting to kind of jump on board with that. And so that's helping kind of establish it as its own thing too. And coming up with our own inside jokes, and everyone is part of the shark squad, and someone just brought me a shark onesie, and like all of these, it's just the small like little goofy things that kind of give you that aha moment, but you don't realize it until like a month has passed and you're like, oh, wait a second, like that was definitely a turning point for me, even though it was something super small and I didn't realize it, and it just changed something small in my brain, and now I view this in a complete different way. And I think that just all of that combined has helped so much. And obviously, like you said, repetition, being able to perform and just almost every night since January. And we've played a few festivals, and some of them, like we played at a festival called Audio Feed, and I was so scared. I was literally telling everyone, because I was the only one playing. Seventh Day wasn't playing; they had an off day, and so I told them, I was like, just so you know, if there's nobody here, I'm sorry. Like, I genuinely thought nobody would come and watch me. I was scared. Like, I thought the guys were gonna be super mad at me because I made them play on a day that they were supposed to have off, and I was just praying the entire day. I was like, God, please let there be people, because I'm gonna be so embarrassed if there's not. Like, yeah. And then I would catch myself. I'm like, okay, but if there's not, just help me be content with whoever's there, because we're supposed to be here for a reason. And even if it's just one person, just help me like speak life into them. And I just having that prayer all day. And we didn't play until I think like 9 o'clock or something. And I was literally just there was so much worry that day. And then when we got on stage, the tent was packed out, and I was like, okay, I think this is something we can do. Like, I don't think this would happen if we weren't supposed to be doing Magdalene Rose. And especially, after I was praying all day, and there's been a few times where, I've prayed that, God would bring more people, but if His will is to have the amount of people that we have at a show there, then to help me be content with that. And then when we walk out on stage, there's more people there. And I think just moments like that have helped a bunch too, just to kind of realize, okay, if God didn't want me doing this anymore, people would not be showing up to shows. Like, He would make it clear that it was time to hang up the Magdalene Rose outfit, and that I just needed to go have a normal job. And but it's clearly the opposite. And just being able to celebrate the small things. When Shark Spray went #1 the first time, Miss Lori had gone into Walmart, and she got us all the little shark sunglasses, and we all took pictures with them. And we got the little fake champagne Martinelli stuff that's just juice, and we shook that up, and it didn't explode because it's non-alcoholic. And so just little things like that to help celebrate milestones, even if, you know, with GFM we wouldn't have celebrated because, oh, well, it's not that big of a deal. Because we've already had a number one. We already had this. But with Magdalene Rose, we're starting over. And so, you know, we celebrate everything, even if it's, you know, a local radio station that we made number one on. It's like, oh, we made number one. What?
Yeah.
And so I think those little things are super important too. You know, that was something I always was told by my parents growing up, celebrate the little things. And, you know, now starting over, it's the little things. But those are helping a ton and helping me realize that there are people that care about this, and, you know, not just people on the bus that I'm with, but when we post out, like, people are going, I'm so proud of you, like, I can't believe this happened, I'm so proud. And it's just like every comment that people say I'm so proud, it's like, oh, okay, that's so cool. And, you know, people are coming to me at shows from bands that I had no idea that they knew who I was, and it's like, oh, I've looked up to you for years, or it's like, I've wanted to be in your spot for years. How do you know who I am? And they're just like, I'm so proud of you for continuing to do music. And I'm like, how do you know me? Like, there's no way you know me. You don't know who I am. Like, what are you talking about? And so I think just that is just people speaking life into me through that. And, you know, maybe they don't even know why they're saying it. Maybe they don't actually know me and they just feel like they were supposed to come over and tell me that they were proud of me because God was pushing them to do that. And you know, it's God has obviously done pretty crazy things in my life, so I don't put that past him to just tell somebody to, like, hey, go tell her you're proud of her. I'm not gonna tell you why.
Yeah.
But you know, that's helped a ton too. Just being able to see people excited about it, you know, even if I wasn't excited about it at the moment, you know, that helped a ton.
Yeah, man, I love how you're celebrating every milestone along the way because, yeah, it is a big deal. Like, you go from an established identity with GFM to now, you know, kind of starting from the ground up with Magdalene Rose. And
Yeah.
I like how you talked about that transition period too, and just being real there, just like, hey, like, I kind of don't want to talk about GFM anymore and just everything that went down there. I kind of want to just focus on Magdalene Rose. And man, by now, everyone's focused on Magdalene Rose because you have been killing it, girl. I mean, Shark Spray, like you said, it went number one on the Christian rock charts. And man, how many weeks was it at number one? Was it like at 4 weeks or something like that?
I think 4 or 5.
What an accomplishment. Tell us a little bit, what was kind of the message, the heart behind Shark Spray?
It was definitely a lot of just understanding that there are people that are going to think negatively about you, and there are people that are going to wish for your downfall, and just not letting it affect you, and just being over feeling broken and being over being the victim, and learning how to kind of take a step again and taking a stand up for yourself, and just ignoring what they say and not letting it affect you, and, you know, calling people out for who they really are. And you know, we use the term shark. Everyone asks us, they're like, what does the shark mean? Like, what does that have to do with anything? And I was like, I don't know. We say shark literally one time in the song. The shark has nothing, or the song has nothing to do with sharks, but we figured it was funny because I love Sharknado and I couldn't name it Sharknado because that's copyrighted. And and then we were trying to find names that had a shark in them, and we wanted to have like the goofy side of it still. And somebody threw out shark spray, and they're like, you know, like Batman, they like, he sprayed it and the shark falls away. And we're like, oh, well, it's kind of like spraying your haters away. And it was a way to keep kind of like silliness into it without letting it get a little too deep. You're like, oh, that hurt a little bit.
Right.
And so once people realize like how deeply the song is affecting them, they're like, they'll just look at the song title and be like, oh, it's okay, I'm laughing again, it's fine, like, I'm not gonna cry.
It's a good balance of that heaviness and just that lightheartedness, right? And
Yeah.
if nothing else, the title made a heck of a music video because, my goodness, that was one of the coolest music videos I've seen in recent years, Maggie. And you filmed the behind the scenes on your vlog, so everyone go to Maggie's YouTube channel and check that out. But yeah, tell us from your own experience, Maggie, what was it like filming and getting into the tank and everything that went on with that?
It was honestly the coolest video I've ever done. We did a lot of music videos with GFM, and this one was definitely my top one. I always wondered how people did like the water things in music videos, and I was like, what am I supposed to do? Just go to an ocean? Like, I don't know how we're supposed to do that. I don't have a waterproof camera. Like, how are people doing this?
Right.
And so we literally showed up, and it's like this giant bathtub with a window in it. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is gonna be cold. And that's like, I can go through lots of things in music videos. I can go through a lot of torture, but being cold is not one of them. Like, I instantly get sick to my stomach. Like, I will throw up if I'm too cold, and my body just doesn't retain heat. And that was the biggest thing. I was so scared. I was like, okay, let's do all the performance shots outside of the water first, because I don't know how fast I'm gonna tap out with this. Like, I was so nervous. And I think the last interview I was wearing my glasses. I have contacts in now, and so I had contacts in because I didn't want to wear my glasses for the music video, because I'm supposed to be a rock star and have perfect vision, and I don't. And so I had my contacts in, and we had like this fake blood, and it got stuck on a contact. So then my contact was like bright pink, and I couldn't see. And so we did all the performance shots in front of it, so they could like CGI sharks swimming past me and stuff. And then I changed and got into my outfit that had like the blood splatters, because my heart was supposed to be cut out. And thankfully, Jake Johnson was our videographer and the director of the video. He was able to get the pool heated, and so it was like a bathtub. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be easy. I grew up swimming. This is a bath. I can do this. And I didn't realize, like, obviously everybody knows people float. It wasn't something that like came to my mind until we were recording, and I was trying to go under, and I was like pushing myself down, and then I would just float back to the top, because I had to hold my breath so I could sing. And I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to do this. I'm just splashing around in this tank right now. And so they had to give me like these weights to hold between my knees, so I would sink to the bottom, and then I could like hold my breath and then like sing and stuff. And my contacts ended up falling out in the tank, and so I couldn't see half the time.
Oh
And
man.
so I was just like, you know what? I don't know what this looks like. I hope it looks good. I can't see anything, and I hope I don't drown. And so I was just trying to like hold my breath as long as possible. There was one shot where I held my breath the entire verse and chorus, and I could hear them
Wow.
scream. Like, it was hard to hear outside of the tank because you're underwater. And they had like the music really, really loud with speakers, but you still can't really hear underwater. And I could hear them like screaming. They're like, how is she still going? Oh my goodness! And I was like, my brain feels like it's gonna explode right now, but the course is almost over, so I have to finish this. And if I drown, at least I made it through. And
That's commitment.
I was like, I gotta make it through, and I will drown. Like, I'll do it just for the shot. And so the second I finished the chorus, I dropped the weight, and I was like, I gotta breathe. My lungs are exploding. And but it was a lot of fun, and it really felt like just swimming the whole time. And we threw a bunch of different colored fabrics in there to just kind of add texture to it. And it was really a super fun experience. Just all the guys and girls on the video team had similar interests to us. We all ate Thai food, and I was like, I'm wearing a white dress, like, I'll take a few bites. I have a bad reputation of spilling food on me. Like, after those few bites, I'm done. I will eat after the video shoot. But then I had to put my boots on, so my socks were wet in my boots, and I had to run down the street in my wet dress, in my wet shoes, with my wet hair. And normally LA is super warm. It was not then. That was like the one weekend they were having a cold spell, and it was slightly raining, and I was so cold, and I was like, we're almost done. I just have to finish this. And so we ended up, I think, 30 more minutes outside, and I was so done after that. I was like, I'm tired. I need to go take a shower. Like, I have chlorine on me. I can't see. But I was just glad that we were able to do it. I was like, I'm going to push through, because I know it's going to be worth it, and I know it's going to look cool, and there's no reason for me to sissy out on this just because I'm cold in the last 30 minutes. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. They all were they have the same sense of humor as we were, so they were able to keep me laughing through the whole thing. And we were filming in the street on part of it, so we would have to film and then a car would come, and so we'd all go running, and they'd have to like scream to make sure I was running the right way because I didn't have my contacts in and I couldn't see. So, but it was a lot of fun, and then we went and got Korean food after, and so I really honestly ate my way through that weekend. I'm so like I'm so glad I wasn't bloated in that music video because I was just eating nonstop.
Oh man, but it was definitely worth all the coldness and the holding your breath and all that. Because man, again, that turned out super cool. And again, go check it out, guys, if you haven't. Sharksbury on YouTube. Last week, your second single, "A Bad Residential," came out. You had Spencer Chamberlain from Under Oath on there. I think I saw today. It's already almost at 100,000 streams.
Yeah, just on Spotify. So
just on Spotify.
We haven't counted all of them from like Apple Music and Pandora and YouTube and all of that yet.
So then you're definitely
Spotify
there.
just sends us emails, so it's a lot easier to be like, oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one is steadily climbing.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. I mean, if again, just those confidence boosters that, hey, Maggie, like people are still into what you're doing. Now they're here for you. You know, they were here for you for GFM. Now they're here for you, right? And what you're creating. And you talked a little bit about it when you were talking about the night terrors, but the message behind "A Bad Residential."
Yeah, it is about all those night terrors that I was having, but and kind of the effects that it has on you physically when you are sleep deprived and you start to feel like you're going crazy, and you feel like you can't trust what you're seeing during the day. And there were times when I would feel like I had heard something and nobody heard it, or I felt like I had seen something and nobody had seen anything, and I was like, I'm literally losing my mind. I'm 22 and I'm gonna be senile this year. Like, what is going on with me? And just and it was hard to trust people in that moment because I felt so paranoid. And but through that whole thing, I continued to fight, and that's why in the bridge and in the outro of the song, it talks about not letting it bury you, and being able to crawl your way out. And it definitely felt like that at times, that I was literally just crawling and doing everything I could to drag myself across the floor to keep fighting. But every inch brought me closer to living again. And um, you know that battle and that pushing through taught me so much about myself. And the saying is very cliche that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And um it's true though. And I didn't know how I would get through the things that I was experiencing and lack of sleep. And I was like, I feel like I'm going to die one of these days. Like, I'm literally going to keel over and die. And but that never happened, and I continued to push through. And um you know different physical problems that would pop up, I was able to continue fighting through them. And I would get sick and I would still somehow have a voice to perform shows. And every night I was just praying that God would sing through me, because I didn't know how I was going to sing, let alone scream that night. And even just recently when we were in Canada, I literally lost my voice. I don't know what happened. I blew up my voice somehow and I couldn't even talk. Like, I posted part of the video on YouTube. I'm very behind. I need to post this week's video. I haven't posted it yet. But I literally couldn't even talk in the video, and I went on vocal rest, and I only talked when I had to. And I tried to sleep that entire day once we were done filming. And I was on like cough drops and all kinds of throat medicine to see if I could get my voice back somehow. And we had a show the next day, and I was like, I don't know what I'm even gonna do. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna perform. Like, if my voice is even 10% better, I still can't perform. And the next day, I didn't. My voice was still like scratchy, and it still would break anytime I would try to talk. But I tried to stay on vocal rest as much as I could and continue to like taking all the vocal medicines and stuff and doing the warm-ups with the straws and everything. Like literally doing everything I could myself to kind of be proactive in healing my throat and healing my voice. And then a lot of it was just praying and asking God to heal my voice. And just when like before going on stage, I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this, God. Like, I need you. And there is obviously no way for me to claim this as my own voice tonight because I literally don't have a voice. And when I got on stage, like I still like my voice was cracking when I was talking, and then I got on stage and my screams came out clearly, my singing voice came out clearly, and it was just a clear sign from God that I was like, okay, I can, I can trust God to take care of me, and I can continue to fight through this thing, and that's something that I don't think I knew. Like it's something that everybody knows. Like God's gonna heal you, God will take care of you, but a lot of times you don't put that factual knowledge into heart knowledge. And through this experience, especially with the night terrors and everything, it taught me how to lean on God for healing, especially after being prayed for and receiving that, finalized healing. It helped me kind of just know that God would be there when I needed him. And my pastor said once, he's like, God may not be on time, but he's never late. And I was like, you know what? I don't like that you told me that because that really applies a lot to my life. And I don't like that you said that. And I won't be able to forget that. And
Right.
it really applies to, that song. Just, it can feel like things are very hopeless and that, like, that you are taking one step forward and two steps back, but just being able to take a step forward means that you're still able to fight. And as long as you're breathing, you're still able to fight. You're still able to make choices. And that's why we wanted to end this song on a positive note. And I wanted to be able to get visuals out there and, visuals of people dying, visuals of hurt, visuals of, fires and stuff that was literally going on in my brain. And grotesque things like we use the word maggots and stuff like that was stuff I was literally seeing, like people, dead bodies full of things. It was really gross and really traumatic. And
Yeah.
seeing how people were dying and stuff like that, and I wanted to be able to get that out on paper and out in a song. And every time that I sing it live, I'm taking that power back. And that spirit of fear stole time from me and it stole life from me. And so now every time that I sing it, every time somebody listens to it, I'm taking that back and I'm able to regain that power and make it very well known that it has no claim over me.
Amen. You have weaponized your story is what you've done. And
Yeah.
I love that. I love that, Maggie. And again, the song is blowing up right now. Huge shout out to Spencer. I mean, what was that like for you? Was little the inner child, inner teenager Maggie just kind of freaking out that, oh my gosh, I got Spencer from Under Oath on this song?
For sure. We emailed him. Well, we emailed his manager, and I was like, there's no way he's gonna answer. But Blaze and Weston, they are always the optimistic people. And they're like, yeah, Will, it's gonna happen. He's gonna be on your song. And I was like, what are you talking about? There's no way this is gonna happen. And we got an answer from him, and I was like, there's no way he's literally talking to us right now. I was like, that's enough for me. Like, he can just have talked to us. That's fine. And
Right.
then we got the okay that he was going to be on the song. And I was like, I'm not going to believe it till I literally have it in my hands. And then we got it in the Dropbox. And I was like, okay, I can believe it now. He's on my song. He's literally singing my words that I helped write. Like, okay. And so then we sent it off to be mixed and added into it. And the whole thing was just like, we were all laughing. And it was not like, haha, this is funny. It's like when it's 3 a.m. and you're laughing because you're like hysterical. And it was like that type of thing. But it was like noon. and all of us had plenty of sleep, but we just couldn't believe what was happening, and we just didn't know what to do, and so we just started laughing, and that was the only thing our body could like say to do because it didn't know how to react. And then when
Yeah.
this song came out, we literally did the same thing, and we just like I was playing it on my computer and on my phone. Blaze was playing on his phone. Everyone on the bus was playing it on their phones. We FaceTimed Eli because he was filling in for another band. He was playing it on his phone. He just started laughing the second that he answered. And we're just trying to call everybody that we know. I called Lou, and she was asleep. And she was like, hello? And I was like, and the song is out. And it's on Under His Pain because they co-released with us. And Spencer Chamberlain's on there. And she's like, I don't know what you said. And I was like, I'll call you tomorrow. And I hung up. I was like, it's fine. I'll tell you tomorrow. You won't even remember that I called you. She probably doesn't even know I called her because I haven't talked to her like about calling her. I just told her that the song was out. And but it really is just like my brain doesn't know what to do with that information. Like it still doesn't understand that it's real sometimes. Like, and I'll see the numbers. I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. Somebody released a really good song. And then I realized that it's my name on that. And I was like, wait, that's my song? And then it's like, no, it's not. I don't know whose that is. And so like my brain is still trying to wrap itself around it and realizing that, you know, stuff that I dreamt of as a child is happening. And you know, it's not in the way that I thought it would growing up, but it is still happening. And, you know, I'm able to, you know, find joy in that and celebrate that and be okay that it's happening in a different way and realizing that, you know, God knows what is a better way for things to happen. And even if I didn't agree with them at first, you know, I'm able to agree with his plans now. And I'm like, okay, God, I kind of like what you're doing, so I think I'm going to trust you now.
As hard as it may be to admit that at times, I was wrong. You were right. Yeah. And it's obvious, Maggie. I mean, just the look on your face, the joy in your voice as you're talking about it. It's so cool. I am genuinely so happy for you that you are at this point now where you can be just fully okay and content and happy with the way things have turned out. And I guess, you know, one of my final questions for you here, Maggie, is if you could go back in time and talk to the Maggie of like a year or so ago, you know, decision to end GFM was just made, all this anxiety, all this panic and fear of like, oh my gosh, what happens next? What would you go back and tell Maggie of a year ago?
I would probably just say like, hey, it's not going to make sense for a long time, but it will eventually. And, you know, just hold on to the people that love you and the people that you care about, and, you know, don't let go of them because they're the ones who are going to keep you going through this. And, you know, it's going to be hard for a while, but that doesn't mean it's impossible.
Amen. Amen. And yeah, Maggie, as you look back at this year in general and you see all that God has done, which first of all, if you haven't been like writing all these things down that he's done, like I would definitely encourage you to do that because those are testimonies that you can stand on for the rest of your life of just his faithfulness, of his goodness. But as you reflect back on his goodness through everything over the last year, what comes to mind?
Honestly, just thankfulness, and that's where I've been at for a little bit now. And, you know, every time I talk to God, it seems like I'm just thanking him for things. And, you know, I've started to even thank him for the hard times in my life, which is like never thought that I would be able to do that. Never thought I'd be like, hey, thanks for, you know, making me suffer. Like, thanks a lot. Like like I thought that's how I would be like, oh, thanks a lot. But now it's like, thank you for letting me go through that and helping me through that, and, you know, allowing me to grow into this person that I'm becoming. And, you know, that is kind of the main thing, that the main feeling I'm having. And obviously just learning that, you know, he never left me through all of that. You know, God was there the entire time. Even when I felt like, you know, he had walked away from me, he was there the whole time. Even if I couldn't see him, even if I was blinded by everything that was going on, he was there holding my hand the entire time. And um, I the last interview we talked about how I had trouble trusting people because I had a lot of people just walk away from me in my life, and I had a hard time keeping relationships, and it seemed like I was trying everything that I could do, and people were still continuing to leave. And that was something that I struggled with God, and I was like, oh my goodness, he's walking away from me too. Like, I didn't think he could do that. And he didn't, and I was just blinded by that. What's it called? By like the history that I had with relationships, and I kind of couldn't see through that for a while. But now looking back on it, it's like, oh, he never left me, and he was working the entire time. And you start to, especially once you are months past something, once you are years past something, you start to see how God was working behind the scenes, and things that seemed completely normal, or it's like, oh, that was a coincidence, how did that happen? It's like, no, it wasn't. God was there the entire time, and he was working, and you just didn't know how he was working. And I think those are the two main things, is just being grateful and knowing that he was there the entire time.
I love it. I love it. Maggie, again, I've said it multiple times, but genuinely so, so happy for you and proud of you for just being obedient, right? God has given you this vision and these talents and this purpose to go out into the world and spread hope, be the light through music. And here you are a year later, just absolutely crushing it. His anointing, his favor, his blessing is definitely on you, and just genuinely happy for you. You're about to head back out on tour with Seventh Day Slumber. You got a tour with Fozzy coming up here. Where can people go to find out if you're going to be coming to a town near them?
Yeah, all of my social media is official Magdalene Rose. And, I have a website now, which is super cool. I've had that for a little bit now. That was one of the last things we did. But it's officialmagdalenrose.com, and it has all my tour dates listed there. There's an integration into bands in town, which if you don't know what that is, it's a little website that, all of the tour dates for every band is pretty much listed on there. So if you aren't following me on bands in town, that's where you need to follow me, because it'll send you an email if I'm in within a certain mile radius of you or your city. And sometimes you can even set it to make sure it'll just email you if we're in your state and stuff. So that's a super important place to be, but also just social media. I post where we're going to be as much as I can. I try to post all the tour posters, and then, day of shows or week of shows that we have coming up, I try to let everybody know where we're going to be as much as I can. So just stay following me on everything at official Magdalene Rose, because we like to be very adamant and pushy about, hey, come see us, we're gonna be here.
Right, right. And I'll link all that in the show notes so people can find that really easily. I'm excited. You guys are going to be coming to my neck of the woods here at the end of the month for Strike the Ground in Isle. So it'll be cool to see you live and in person for the first time and get to meet you in person for the first time. So Maggie, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure catching up with you. And man, just keep doing your thing.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always nice to just talk about things, because we do interviews and shows and stuff that are Christian and not Christian, and so sometimes you have to be careful how you word things. Not because you're scared to say that you believe in Jesus Christ, but you don't want to force something down somebody's throat that doesn't want to hear it. So it's nice to just be able to talk about things without having to worry about that.
Hey, no chains, no restrictions here. Thanks again, Maggie.
Thank you.